everyone, welcome back to episode 7 of Iron Bay Research, where we're going to continue the story about us a little bit. So, where we left off last was I had proposed, you had thankfully said yes. I can't remember how long we were engaged for.
It was about 6 months. We got engaged on December 2012 and then married in May of 2013.
Yes, and during that time, communication was pretty infrequent.
Because you were in pre-Ranger school.
No, I was in Airborne and then RASP.
Yep, which was pre-Ranger school for those that don't know.
No,
not Ranger school, pre-Ranger regiment.
Yeah. So
pre-Ranger regiment.
I had my phone, but we were distracted. You know, obviously I was doing a pretty intense training, and then you were doing college with the athletes. So I think one thing that we wanted to hit on was how we messed up and didn't talk about finances. I think
pre-marriage, we didn't.
Like we should have definitely,
we went emotional, which was great. I mean,
you do need that.
But we didn't think logical, and obviously using our age as an excuse. We were 20 when we got married, so we got married very young. But it was one of those things where we were kind of like, are we in it or are we not? And so we decided to be in it and just go all in and get married. Yeah. But there was a lot more to come, which we later found out financially. Yeah. And I think before we talk about the big blow of the baggage I was carrying, we can quickly talk about junior year of my schooling. Here we are married. I go back to Radford. Bryce is deployed. So you got deployed for your first deployment to Afghanistan that August.
Well, I think I wanted to pull back into like what we didn't talk about, or do you want to circle back to that later?
Yeah. Oh.
There's a whole lot. Like I think that's a whole chat itself.
That's what I was getting into, like the shared finances.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, for starters, there's always a joke for anyone that's associated with the military or any sort of job like that. I don't know what other jobs like that, but if you're married, you actually get paid a bit more. So it's always a joke with enlisted people, or anyone in the military vet, you get married young because your pay...
For the money.
Your pay increases, and it's not insignificant. So, for example, I think my base pay was like $1,500 to $1,700 a month, something like that. But if you're married, you also get something called BAH, which was like an additional... I was like close to $2,000. Mm-hmm. So it almost doubles. And obviously there's a lot of... It depends where you live, it depends your rank... but it is a massive increase. And
so that's why you always hear people at the military, if you've been dating for a good amount of time, and you like someone, you're like, we might as well get married because you get a lot more money.
I think it's a point too, because there's the benefits. You instantly got full health care, full dental, and all that good stuff. So all jokes aside, it is a serious conversation. Whereas if you were in the civilian world and you got married and you didn't, there's really not
that much benefit.
Sorry, that was my dog licking my toes. If you heard that, but if you heard, there are some extra benefits, and I think that does force some people to get married when they're not ready.
Sure,
right? There is like that bad part.
No, absolutely.
But I wonder if we didn't talk about money. Well, I just know I think we thought about it, but maybe because we trusted each other?
Yeah, I think that was it. There was a lot of trust. We had already spent a year, our first sophomore year at school without each other. That was the first time we'd been apart since we'd been together. Yeah. So 4 years together at that point. We'd never been apart until sophomore year. Yeah. And I think we built a lot of trust in that year, and we saw that, we can do long distance. We both kept continuously choosing each other over wherever we were. Bryce, it was probably easier for Bryce than me. You were with a bunch of dudes. Yeah. I was with everything under the sun. So Bryce had no temptation in front of him, where maybe I did, being at college and going to parties and stuff. But we just chose to choose each other, and I think we built a lot of trust with that. So we were like, everything else can be figured out, like what else could possibly happen.
It was like on that foundation everything fits in, and it's true, like you do need that foundation, but it's like I mean, marriage is complicated.
Yeah,
I don't know.
More to it.
Yeah.
There's obviously layers,
Yeah.
and we were soon to learn the layers.
I think the older we get with marriage, and this is obviously like kind of shifting away from what we wanted to talk about, but like, I think marriage is more partnership than.
Yeah, I would agree
with
Eddie,
that. I feel like they're just hearing licking. Sorry, our dog loves toes. Eddie, come on, buddy. Let's go over here.
He's scared of the
thunder, right now it's thundering, so he just gets nervous. So,
we've both just been trying to keep a serious conversation while he's been licking our toes for the past 10 minutes.
His name is Eddie.
But we call him Stinky.
Yeah.
Anyways, Stinky, go. Good boy.
But yeah, so we don't talk about the loan.
So partnership, and I think that's we won't share too much on that. That isn't financially related because we don't claim to be like the best at marriage, but we make it work. And I think because we look at it as we started since we had our kid, we can talk about that another time too, go in depth, is when we really started looking at our family as kind of a business. It let a lot of other stresses go, because then each of us felt like the load was being carried to make the family unit work, which is the business.
It gave you like a goal.
Yeah. And
an aside too, it's like, I think finances is like a number one or number two reason for divorce.
Sure, yeah.
So like, it's not everything.
But it's a lot.
But I mean, it's easier to be married when you're not stressed about money. I mean, I think anyone in a long-term relationship would understand that.
Yeah,
and I think people that don't say that, I think are just lying to themselves.
Yeah.
I can't think that anyone seriously in a relationship and doing life can say otherwise.
So before we get actually to the loan thing, the baggage that I was carrying, which Bryce knew that I was under student loans for school. I think you did know that.
I knew. I just didn't know
the magnitude of it. Yeah. Before that, junior year, it's a negative dowry. So junior year, here we are, the first time actually sharing expenses, because we merged bank accounts. So instantly we opened up a USAA together, and you gave me a card. That was access to our joint account.
Did we talk about that, or just happen?
We didn't. We kind of just this is what you do when you're married. You combine finances, and we thought that's what was normal. And I think it worked out, and it's to this day we have a shared account. I mean, I know a lot of couples do it differently, which is interesting. I didn't realize, I thought that was the only way. I thought that's what you do when you get married, but I didn't realize, now that I speak to more people at this age, several years into marriage, that other people, there is a good majority that actually do it opposite. The husband and wife have their own separate account, and maybe just a shared for bills. So we completely share everything. Pleasure, bill. We just have one account. We don't use our childhood accounts at all. We just have them because they're credit unions. And
I have like a business account for like, I'm a real estate agent too. But that's just, we put some stuff in there for like write-offs, but like everything for the house. But I think, so for like split accounts, you can have your separate accounts, but I do think that if you're married, each party is responsible for like debts. So like, let's say you had your own account and you, had a credit card bill. I'm like 99% sure I am liable for that as well.
Even if it's my name. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So,
but that wasn't, we didn't make, but that didn't play into our decision to have a shared account. Anyways, we had a shared account. So junior year, that actually took a little bit of load off my parents, because even though I was using some of the loan money to spend, I would try to inherently not spend all of my loan money that I'd got. I'd use it more for living expenses.
Nice.
So having access to Bryce's account while he was deployed was nice. Bryce paid for my food and
wasn't
my alcohol.
Spending anything else.
Yeah, exactly. Bryce was just working his booty off in Afghanistan while I was spending his money at school.
That's like a weird connotation to it. Yeah. I don't know if I like that.
Okay, not working.
I don't know if I like that.
He was just working very hard in Afghanistan.
I don't know if I like that.
We might have to cut that.
Yeah, let her out.
So that was kind of the first. I wasn't spending a lot. I would probably say on average I was spending like $400 a month on food and stuff like that. Yeah. So that was our first taste of me spending your money.
I think it's such.
So that's interesting.
Now that I think about it, we had kind of a distorted like early first couple years of finance being married, because you were in college, so even though you're pulling debt, it's just so hard to like account for that money coming in and out when it's delayed.
Yeah,
Like
sure.
it's really hard to write a pros and cons and an income statement, whatever you want to call it. And then I was living on base, and I had like a lot of my food taken care of when I deployed. I wasn't spending anything, so it was really distorted about like money coming in and coming out.
Yeah.
Now I'm thinking about it.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Because we always had money to spend. Like, it was funny. All of our friends in Fort Benning, where I was stationed at, we all had similar pay. And so we always knew, we always got paid at the same time. We're like, hey, we're going to go out. I know you just got paid. Let's go spend it.
Yeah.
So it was like everyone kind of, we were always able to go out and have fun.
Yeah.
Like, I was never like really penny pinching.
Yeah. But I think that's because we had our housing paid for, the little bit of cash. And we weren't like, we couldn't take vacation in the military because you were always gone. So really all that money that maybe other people were spending on lavish vacations, we just had.
Yeah.
So
I did drive up to you a lot, but that was just gas.
Yeah.
I mean,
side note, Bryce is probably the main reason our long distance relationship worked out. He would drive up to Radford, which was an 8-hour drive from Columbus, Georgia.
I think it was like 10.
No, it was 8 hours.
Yeah, I can't remember. Yeah.
And even though he would only have 24 hours to see me, he would still drive 8 hours, see me for 10 hours, and drive 8 hours back to be back to work.
Not a lot to do in Georgia.
And he did that like every other weekend, so that was amazing. And he surprised me several weekends, which was super cool. So anyways, anyone taking relationship notes, take it from this one.
Take the drive.
Make the drive.
Make the drive.
You'll get a wife from out of it.
Yeah.
But anyways, so I think to quickly brush through junior year of college that was your first taste of like actually in your unit working. You got deployed. I was spending a little bit of your money, which I'll ask you how you viewed that. But I think I felt so comfortable with you at that point in time, and I was feeling so guilty for all the money maybe I'd been asking for my parents for being there, and that I wasn't working just to like, it was coming more apparent that I was just doing a hobby still and going to school and asking my parents for money. It just started to feel selfish a little bit.
I could see
so
that.
I think when you stepped in to take a little bit of the load off of my parents, I didn't even blink an eye, and I really appreciate that you allowed me to do that. Yeah. Did you feel like when you were deployed, and that was the first year of our marriage, did you have any views on me spending your money while you were gone?
I don't think
Or did you even think on it?
I don't think it ever really crossed my mind as a thing. It was just, I was raised like, I don't want to say like standard, but I was just, what's a term? Traditional, where it just like the guy pays. That was just how it was, it was going to happen. So no, but never really bugged me at all.
Yeah, and I do. Yeah. I loved that about you. I think that was like the first time in our relationship where we just continued to build trust and on that foundation, because not once did you ever go, oh, I reviewed the charges on our account. You just trusted me to make good decisions, because it wasn't lavish. I wasn't like at the tanning salon buying jewelry, getting my nails done. I was literally just buying food, alcohol. If we went out, you could see some bar charges on there and stuff like that. So I think it was kind of, we built a trust there at first where I was like, look, I'm not here to spend all of your money while you're gone on silly things. It's literally just the necessities.
And I can see for like other relationships, because I think we were also just becoming adults too. Right. So, like, we didn't have, like, a habit ingrained. But I could see that if you're getting in a relationship and getting married later in life, like in your late 20s or 30s, I could see that could be a much more serious conversation.
Absolutely.
Because obviously, like, I mean, what are you going to buy? What are you going to buy in college? Like, a bar tab is $20, $30. Yeah.
Maybe purses.
You know what I mean?
That's what I'm talking about.
But you're not making big purchases, where I think later in life you are, just because things are more expensive.
Yeah.
So I can see that being a big thing. So I guess I'm really pro, like, I look back now and like, man, we should have really opened the kimono and talked about everything about like, what are you spending, what are your spending habits, yada yada.
So this just goes back to wrap that up, something that we will hopefully deliver to our kids when they're looking at a serious relationship, and when they eventually tie that knot, if they do choose to get married. I hope that we can pass that lesson on to them, is be very candid with your finances and share everything before you embark on that
and look at it as a partnership.
Yeah.
Because you're a family unit, and if you have a certain living standard and your partner is not producing that income for that living standard, it's got to come from somewhere. And that sounds very harsh and very like unsympathetic, but it's the truth.
No, and I think to follow that up with, but if you're okay that you are wearing the financial pants, man or woman,
then,
and you marrying them for love and know that you'll have to carry that financial weight, then be accepting of that. You know?
That's a good way to kind of. So I guess just talk about it. Just
exactly. Just talk about it, and if it's not the way you want it to be, but you're okay with that, and you want to carry the load, then be okay with that. You know. And if not, then I think it's a very appropriate reason to not go into a partnership.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, like, it's kind of funny because we like the show called Love is Blind.
Oh,
like it's 100%. You know, what's it called? Your secret guilty pleasure. Yeah.
Well, I'm not even guilty about it. Yeah, I was shot from the rooftops.
It's a damn good show. But in the show, you know, they date and then they go in the real world, and there's always one thing that hits them is that it's like you're always fine on vacation, but the real world hits.
Yeah.
The finances always takes out at least one or two couples.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think it's because it's just, you have to talk about it. Like,
and I'm interested that it's, maybe they're not showing these conversations. Obviously, the producers can pick what they show. But I feel like I've never seen them talk about finances other than what they do for a living in the pods.
Yeah.
And that's something that I feel like...
I think someone, they glaze over it, but they don't highlight it.
Yeah, and people think it's superficial... but it's a massive part of your life.
Yeah.
I mean, it's massive. Just like when you ask people what they do for a living, we've heard people say that on the West Coast, that's more taboo than on the East Coast.
Yeah.
Like maybe on the East Coast, people are more data driven and they want to know what you do for a living. But our thinking, and I think you share this with me, is it's kind of where you spend half your life during the week.
Oh, you spend, what, 2,000 hours a year?
Yeah. It's
for 20, 30 years? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, out of curiosity, what keeps you busy, and and it's what you like to do. Like, I don't think that that's a bad question. It's just, I think it's strange when people are like, oh, you shouldn't ask what people do for a living. Why? It's what they spend more time at work than they do with their families.
Yeah.
So, what are they doing to justify that?
Yeah. I think that's a very good point. Yeah, I stand by that. Just it's not. I don't think like. It's just you have to take that into account. It's not judging or any other way. It's just like it is what you do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
no, absolutely. So, anyways, I think we can, we beat that horse dead.
I did want to bring up something too that I just remembered because I was thinking about purchases. I was talking about that, buying the car.
Did we do this?
We were married. That was
we were married, and I think that was junior year.
Because
right?
that was our first.
Okay.
So
actually, right after we got married. Okay.
Yeah. So
right after we got married, I didn't have I didn't have a car yet in college, and Bryce had a car, but
I had a Tacoma.
But now he kind of needed it because after deployment you were going to be down on base.
Yeah,
so
I was living
driving
there.
around.
House,
so my parents were like, okay, let's finally help you guys. If we can, get you transportation. So they did, which was great, and they bought. My grandparents offered to sell my parents for me their Honda CRV that was like. From the 90s.
Yeah,
but it only had 60,000 miles on it, and it was in amazing shape. And my grandparents could have got probably like $7,000 or $8,000 for it.
Yeah.
But they gave it to my parents for $1,000, which was amazing.
Yeah.
And then my parents gave us $2,000 to put into the car.
Yeah.
And then your mom bought my tires, which was about $800.
So it's kind of like almost like a wedding gift.
Yeah. So your mom, my parents both contributed and my grandparents all contributed to this car for me to have so that I could visit Bryce and bop around school, which was amazing. So it ended up serving us really well for about 2 years. I think I drove the CRV.
Yes.
Yeah. So after college was buying the car. We're not there yet.
Yeah.
We bought the Escape way later.
Yeah, so I had a Tacoma. The transmission was causing issues, so I sold it to CarMax.
No, that's way before, after college. That's after I graduated.
No.
Yeah.
I had the Tacoma.
You did.
And because I never had a Mustang driving up to see you.
Yeah, after I graduated. Oh, you're
No, I
right.
bought the
The
V8. I
V8.
bought the V8 on my first deployment to Bath. And before that I had the G.
Oh,
I
yeah.
had the,
But
yeah.
how did I go get it? Because
It was during summer.
it was during summer, so it
Yes.
wasn't your first deployment, it was your second.
It
It
was my
was
second.
before senior year.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I guess you just skipped a lot. I guess we could
Well,
talk about that.
let's just run with this car.
Okay.
Yeah, because we're here. So that was we had one car, and that's the one you kept at college.
Yeah.
And then I had the Tacoma from high school. The transmission went out. We ended up selling it to CarMax, which is a great way to sell a car, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're going to give you a fair price. So now we always sell our cars.
Well, they
to
gave
CarMax.
we can talk about exact numbers
Yeah,
on that.
so-
I mean, so say what you bought it from your dad for.
Yeah, so my dad, it was kind of like almost like a graduation present a little bit, but
Yeah.
he sold it to me for like it was like
I thought it was
6-ish grand.
5,000.
No, it was like I think it was like 6.5
Okay.
something like that. Anyway, he sold to me for less than what it's worth.
Way less. It was like a $30,000 car.
Yeah,
truck.
it was a nice truck, and he sold it to me. I bought it, and then had transmission problems, and we sold it to CarMax, and they didn't really do a check. They just they drove it around the
Or
lot.
maybe they did, and they knew what it was worth. But either way, they
Yeah.
gave us $15,000 for it.
Yeah.
And at that time, we were only expecting like $3K or something.
Yeah, I was like, whoa.
But we were like, whoa.
We also didn't know a lot about cars.
We didn't, yeah.
It's like, okay, so
But here, CarMax, we're still only 21 at this point. Where
Yeah.
I'm still in college. You're
in hindsight, we should have kept the damn.
Yeah.
Actually, no, but the transmission was bad.
No, the transmission
Yeah.
was
So
bad,
we took
so
that
yeah.
money, bought a Mustang V6. Don't laugh at me. Anyone is a car person.
I thought we didn't do that yet. I thought we bought the Escape with your Tacoma money. That's what I was thinking.
I remember we had them Escape and the V6 at the same time.
V8 or V6?
The V6.
Okay, so you bought the V6 first or the V8? No, you bought the V6 first.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, sorry, I forgot.
Yeah, you keep throwing me off.
I know, but the timeline's not adding up. But I guess it doesn't matter. We're just
Yeah.
talking about cars. So
Yeah. Anyway,
regardless.
so bought it, sold it. But that wasn't my point. The point I was trying to get to is buying and selling cars is your first kind of big purchase. Did we talk about it, or was it just hey, I want to do this?
Surely we talked about
But the
it.
Tacoma was
and
a
I
no-brainer.
think- Yeah, the Tacoma was a no-brainer, and I think
Yeah.
we didn't have to go into debt for the Mustang, right? Because
Yeah.
no, we didn't. You're
Because
right.
I know we bought your Escape in cash.
Yeah, and that was after. So we didn't. So now
Yeah.
we still had the V6 and my Honda CRV, and we didn't have any car loans still at this point, which is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's
I
huge.
think I
Yeah.
had some money saved up.
So I will
Yeah.
say, in that sense, our parents who maybe didn't share a lot of knowledge in our childhood about money with us, they knew that they wanted to support us in any way that they could and
Yeah.
set us up for success. And I think that looking back as we go down the timeline of our life, them helping us out with cars in the beginning was a huge trajectory for us because
yeah.
we didn't have any loans.
Yeah.
So I think that plays out in the end of all this moving money around. We were
Yeah.
able to buy our cars in cash, which I don't know. Do you even recommend that? Or I think we just got lucky.
I think it just depends. I mean,
But if you need a car, you need a car.
I think cars are expensive.
Yeah.
I'll say this about cars. It's cars are expensive, but you also need them.
Yeah.
So
sure.
it's just it's a utility. You have to have one. So I would say just try to keep the cost under control.
Yeah.
But what I don't agree with, and I'm sure I might get some shit from this, I disagree.
Okay.
Is when you just buy a really cheap car because it's all you can afford, but the hidden costs of an old car are so much between it breaking down,
Sure.
it being unreliable,
Right.
higher insurance, yada yada.
Right.
It's just better for you to get a newer, more reliable car, even if it's more expensive.
Even if it takes a payment.
just because you have less issues in the background.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
and then I think
I
leasing,
can
yeah,
agree
and
with
I think
that.
and I think nowadays too, leasing actually makes more sense, and there's reason behind it. So technology improves very quickly.
Versus a loan.
Yeah,
Okay.
versus buying one, because leasing, it's it's you're pretty much making payments forever. But how fast cars are accelerating technology wise, and just all this stuff happening. If your car breaks down or you want to get the latest model, leasing makes a lot of sense.
That's true.
In situations.
I could see that.
So I guess just do whatever makes sense in your budget. Like I think there's a lot of hidden costs with the car.
Yeah.
But I think it's silly to think you don't need one unless you're in the city. Right?
Yeah.
But
well, sure. Yeah.
That's a whole different conversation.
Yeah, but I think because of where our relationship was at that time and how much we like to not necessarily travel, but we like to have our freedom and our control. We've always had cars, so for us, we prioritize cars a lot.
Yeah,
and we always prioritize. And I think that's where we're getting at with this conversation is from the get-go. We prioritize car, and we both had that in agreement. So I don't think it was something that was ever like, oh, hold on, wait a second, you want what? It was like, oh, you need a car, so do it.
I do remember with the Escape though. It wasn't. We weren't like nitpicking over like $100 here, $100 there. It was like we looked at the Toyota Pathfinder, I think.
No.
I know we looked at a new CRV.
It was a RAV4.
We looked at the RAV4 and a new CRV, and I think those were about $10,000 more than your Escape. They were,
yeah.
And so we did.
The Ford Escape.
The Ford Escape was very like budget friendly.
It was
first
super
time car.
It
was like what $20,000.
So eventually we ended up selling my CRV that all of our family helped us out with because now we had money and we were able to make.
Yeah, I think we got like $5,000 for it.
The CRV, $4,000.
Yeah,
we sold it to another high schooler in Columbus, which was kind of nice to know that someone else was getting my little car. That was so
the story lives
for
on.
me. Yeah, but anyways, we ended up prioritizing again my car because I traveled to see you a lot. This was when you were working, so now it became me senior year driving to Columbus all the time from Radford, and you wanted me to have a reliable car. Yeah, so that's why we did it. But again. We were able to do it in a way that we didn't have a loan on my Escape. It was paid off.
Yeah. So I think the first car loan was the V8.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So ended up selling the Mustang V6 I had. Mm-hmm. Actually, a funny story with that. I don't know if I want to tell what was selling it to that one guy and ended up buying both of them.
Oh yeah, we can tell that later. But anyways, my Escape was later too. So really quick before we continue the car saga about where we ended up. Yeah. We've bought and sold a lot of cars in the past. Yeah. Like we have our 2 Fords we've had for the past several years, but
we're Ford people.
We took a second to get there, right? But anyways. Quickly, I'll brush into senior year then. So at that point, I still had my Honda CRV, and you had your V6 Mustang, which was kind of, I think you needed that, a treat to yourself. You'd been working so hard. Bryce has always liked Mustangs. Of course.
It wasn't that expensive, too.
It was only like 22, 23.
Yeah, it really wasn't.
Yeah. So. What did they call it? The poor man's sports car.
So again, in a car, people want to talk shit. It was a V6. I eventually bought a V8, which is more expensive. It's just like a bigger engine.
Yeah. But anyways, it was cool. You had the Mustang. That was fun. Yeah. And we enjoyed driving it around. Yeah. But anyways, going into my senior year, we still had not addressed the loan issue yet of my loans.
Yeah. Oh yeah, back to what we wanted to talk about.
We hadn't gotten there yet.
Sidetracked.
Yeah. So going into senior year though, a huge help was that I wasn't on scholarship for soccer my first 3 years, and I finally earned scholarship for the full year, my senior year. Yeah, so that was really exciting. It was $13,000, which the way it worked out, it did pay for everything minus like my food. Yeah. So that was the only thing that I still had to cover myself was like my food plan and things like that. Yeah. But yeah, that was amazing. So that was one less loan. I didn't have to pull out a loan for senior year. Yeah. So the way it works, going back to student loans a little bit, we talked about last time, it's not one sum loan for all 4 years. You pull out a loan individually for each year that you need it.
That makes sense.
So at that point, I only had 3 loans, and unexpectedly, I didn't have to pull a 4th because I paid for it through my soccer. So that was really cool. We were very excited about that. But we still hadn't addressed the elephant in the room, which was how much I owed. I don't know why. I think we were so busy in school and you deploying all the time. Yeah. it just never came up because when we saw each other, it was just excitement, emotion,
like a lot of honeymoon era,
happiness.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, honeymoon era for sure.
Yeah.
Real life hadn't set in yet, especially because the loans are deferred until you graduate. So we hadn't had to come to reality yet. So we were just really enjoying our time.
Yeah.
So I think then we can go to me graduating and the loan thing. Unless there's something
I wanted to
touch on
segue super fast about you getting the scholarship.
Oh, okay.
Remember we chatted about like people not talking about what they get for the team. I want to bring that up real fast.
Okay.
So,
I like that conversation. So Bryce and I were actually talking about this yesterday, and we want to bring it up again because it is a really interesting thing how...
Yesterday, not on the episodes, but like in the house. We were
in the house yesterday, and you know how when you make a certain amount of money at your job in your career, obviously it's just an unspoken rule or sometimes spoken by your boss to not talk to other people about what they make.
They don't want hurt feelings.
And do you want to say in the business's interest why they don't want employees talking to each other about what they make?
It's just in the business's interest. They just don't want you to know what everyone is making. And when that ever happens, it's the person that's paying, i.e. the boss, that has the power, right? Because, if you're paying employee A 10 grand and you're paying employee B 15 grand, well, then all of a sudden you need to justify that. And all of a sudden, employee A gets pissed, maybe they want to quit, or it adds a lot of complications. So it's just easier for the boss or the employer, whoever they are, to keep it under wraps, to keep it hidden.
Sure.
And it does that hiding of information never benefits the employees. So we'll just segue that into the scholarships.
So why do you think employees never do talk to each other about what they make?
I don't know.
Why do they listen? The man's got them down, and
I don't know.
Whatever?
I think it just slowly become taboo.
Yeah, I guess.
But I think sites like Glassdoor and stuff like that.
Maybe as an employee you also don't want animosity with your teammates, so you're afraid to bring it up.
Well, it's all over the place now. I think with HR, they even make it like you have to sign NDAs and shit like that.
Oh yeah, maybe that you won't discuss.
Well, because it's all.
That's true. Yeah. I think you do actually.
Well, it gets confusing, right? Because maybe your pay is wrapped up in like benefits, or maybe you were hired during like a hiring spree.
No, you're
like
right.
There's all
you get a massive bonus because of your skill set.
Like there's whole stuff, and it causes issues. Anyway, just everyone knowing everyone gets paid is issues for the employee. Employer.
So similarly, in college, we were always told by our coaches never to discuss scholarship with anyone.
Yeah.
Obviously, that creates a lot of animosity because you hear through the grapevine who's on scholarship, who isn't.
If they're playing, if they're
and
benched.
A lot of times, people would get upset when someone was on full scholarship and they weren't a starter and they would sit on the bench.
As they should be. Absolutely should be.
Upset. They should be upset. So someone who's starting and getting a lot of play time, for example, but not on scholarship, that creates a lot of animosity on the team. And that existed all 4 years that I was on the soccer team. There was disgruntlement for sure.
Yeah.
And some people decide to get vocal about it. Some people don't. It just depends.
Yeah.
But I never got vocal about it because confrontation makes me so sick. I am working on that in my life. I need to be more confident. So I hope through this podcast and through our conversations that I can learn
not with
confident.
Me, other people. I don't
Oh, I tell Bryce off all the time. I don't need to learn confidence to tell you off, but I just that's probably one of my biggest regrets is being candid and voicing my wants and needs. But either way, it ended up working out in the end, and I was happy that I got a full scholarship. To wrap this episode up, we're only going to be a couple more minutes because we did want to finally get to the baggage that I was carrying when it all came to a head. And we'll end this episode with that. Yeah. So my senior year, the way it all unfolded is I remember it was, I think, wintertime. I was down visiting you.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, we had a house on base in Columbus, Georgia.
Yeah.
That we didn't have any furniture in because we didn't have furniture. We had a camping bed that we slept
and
on.
it had a bean bag.
And we had a bean
bag.
Got
Big Joe.
Yeah, it was called. We bought it at Walmart. We had a bean bag and a camping bed. And
a camping chair.
Yeah, and a camping chair. So we had camping furniture in our first house for an entire year, but it worked. Yeah. Anyway, so I was there for a couple weeks over winter break, and I remember, I don't know what came over me, but I was starting to feel the pressure of my last semester coming up of college. I'm going to start applying for jobs soon. I need to really see what I'm on the hook for my loan monthly. Yeah. And I don't know why. I think I had heard that someone else pays like $200 to $300 a month for their loan. And for some reason, that just stuck with me. Yeah. And that's what I was like, oh, I'll probably only be paying about that much too. I never actually dug in to see. Yeah. I think I kept putting it off because I was so anxious about it that I didn't want to address.
Well, it's like a looming thing. Yeah. And I think this is very real for a lot of people.
Oh, yeah. So I kept not wanting to address it, which was the bad thing. And I remember I called Sally Mae and I was like, let me just do it. So
and Sally Mae is...
the loan provider. Okay, yeah. Sally Mae is the loan provider that I got my college loans through. So I called them and I was speaking with an operator and I was like, hey, this is my loan number. How much am I going to owe monthly and when are the payments going to start being due? And she was like, your payments will start being due. You can defer it all the way up to 6 months after you graduate. Yeah. So I wouldn't, if I didn't want to, I didn't have to start paying until like the following September after I graduated.
Just curious, if you would extend it for like a master's program, is it when you graduate that or when you graduate the first 4 years?
When you graduate that, I'm pretty sure. Okay, but so every loan's different.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I'm sure they're like, oh, you're going for more.
Yeah, yeah. So as long as there's proof that you're in education, I think that makes sense, they defer it. Unless you're working at the same time. Obviously, they're going to get their money.
Yeah, that makes sense, yeah.
But anyways, so she said that each loan was an individual loan that I owed
so 3.
About $250 a month on. So times that by 3, it was close to $800 a month I was going to owe monthly. Yeah. That type of monthly payment now for us doesn't shock me as much, but at that time as a 21-year-old who had never had any bills other than like my car insurance and things like that, I had no bills that were over $300 a month, and I heard that and that
was including like your rent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
I heard the $800 a month on the hook for, and that crushed me. Yeah. And mostly because we're just wiggling the mouse, guys, so we can see ourselves on the screen to make sure we're not looking trollish. Anyways, I think it crushed me more because I knew I had to share that with Bryce, and that meant he was on the hook for it too, even though I knew I was going to try my best to take care of it. And
I think at that time that would have been more than a third of like my net. I think my net pay was like $2,200 a month.
So Bryce was at work when I had that phone call, and I remember calling my dad crying. Before I told you, I was just in shambles crying on the phone to my dad. He was like, it's gonna be okay. Like, you're gonna be okay. Yeah. Relax. So put on my big girl panties, and I was like, I'm just gonna tell Bryce when he gets home. Yeah. It is what it is. Whatever his reaction is, And so Bryce got home from work. I told him, you weren't upset with me. You were just like, damn.
I think I was just upset in general.
Yeah, you were just like,
Yeah. I think, to be honest, I was annoyed that you didn't know.
Yeah, you were annoyed that I didn't know.
I wasn't mad. I was just like...
But you were very patient and just... First you took on, oh my gosh, I'm annoyed. Yeah. But then he saw how upset I was. Yeah. And you did console me. You were like, it's going to be okay.
We moved kind of quickly to looking at like refinance options. Because I knew there was stuff in the military.
Yeah, we did. That did cross our minds. What are your thoughts on that now? People that... Because since they were all 3 individual loans and they each had an interest rate of 9%, which was pretty high.
So I know with the military loans, you had to be active. Like, you could lower the rate. So I remember we were actively looking
So
at
we
that.
were actively looking at consolidating all the loans into one with a lower interest rate, which would in turn lower the monthly payment due.
Yeah.
Why did we decide that we didn't want to go that route? Because my dad. So so we'll end this episode with the most amazing thing ever.
Yeah.
So this was 3 weeks before graduation. Yeah, it was very close to graduation. I had already secured a job, which was great.
Where at?
So at George Mason Mortgage. So
No. This was
my senior year before graduation. Oh,
no,
I didn't get my job until July.
I thought you worked at Benning first.
No, Bryce. I quit my job that I just got to come live with you
That's
for you
right.
to leave me again. I know.
We're getting old.
That.
I can't remember this.
Yeah. I remember. Yeah. We'll get to that next episode. More trauma. More financial trauma. Yeah. But anyways, so 3 weeks before graduation, actually, sorry. I had that job lined up, but I wasn't quite there yet. So anyways, my parents call me at Radford on a Thursday night. I'll never forget. Mm-hmm. And luckily I'm not out partying. I was just hanging out at my apartment. And my parents are like, hey, where are you? And I'm like, I'm just at my apartment. And they're like, we're here at Radford, which is...
You could have been just like wasted.
What if I was drunk and wasted? Yeah, at a frat house or something. But I wasn't. Luckily, I was...
Studying?
I was completely...
What are you doing? Schoolwork?
Completely sober at my apartment, thank God, because I was about to get the best surprise of my life.
That's funny.
So Radford is 4 hours away from where my parents lived. Mm. So it was a huge surprise and shocking that they were just randomly in Radford, not randomly. And they were like, can we come pick you up and take you to McAdoo's, which was the fave go-to restaurant at Radford. So we went to McAdoo's, and my parents should have thought this out better in hindsight because I'm a stage 5 crier. Anyone that knows me knows that I am a stage 5 crier. So it doesn't take much to make me cry. I'm sure at one point I'll be crying on here. But anyways, we're in McAdoo's in the booth. My parents give me this card. First, they give me my graduation present, which was a blanket of all my soccer t-shirts ever worn.
Yeah, I remember
They
that,
had it made by one of my girlfriend's
like a collage,
moms. Yeah, that was cute. So I had a blanket of soccer t-shirts, and then they're like, there's one more thing. And they gave me a card that was like a graduation card, and it had a folded up piece of 8x11 computer paper in it. And they were like, before you look at the top, read the bottom. And my mom had handwritten a message. I should have brought it on for this. I'll find it. I still have it. Yeah. We'll do that next episode.
I think that'd be good, yeah.
Yeah, and it says something, it's very poetic. It's like, some little birds are trapped down in debt, but you, little bird, you're debt-free so you can fly free.
Yeah.
And then I looked up at the top, and my $60,000 of student loans were paid off to a balance of 0.
That's a lot of moolah.
What?
Yeah.
It was wild. So my parents surprised me, and when 4 months earlier, when I was crying on the phone to my dad because I just found out monthly how much I had to pay, and I was like, my husband's going to divorce me, who I just married, and my dad knew he was going to pay off my loans at that point and didn't tell me. He made me suffer.
That's funny.
And they paid off my student loans.
Yeah.
We can talk about next time. We can start the podcast about how they did it.
Yeah, I think it's a good chat.
What you think about that? Yeah. So we'll talk about that next time, how they paid off my student loans.
Yeah.
Either way, that was a huge trajectory in our life. Yeah. A pivot point for sure.
We can even play a little game of like what would have happened, like
if
what if.
Yeah, we will.
I think that's
next
you
time.
Can see how like that it diverges.
Yeah, it did diverge. Yeah. So here we are after I graduate college, going into our first marriage of life, not having any student loans to worry about.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mom and Dad.
Yeah, appreciate it. Huge help.
I know. So we can wrap it up there after the big reveal.
Yeah. I think that was a good chat. Thanks for joining us. We will see you guys on the next episode.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you guys for watching. If you liked this and want more, subscribe or comment below. We'll see you here next time on Iron Bay Research. Bryce and Kara signing out.